What's up, everybody? It's your boy, and I'm here with another video. And if you're a Panther fan, you got to know right now what's going on. Cam Newton, our guy, our beloved QB, went on the Pivot podcast today, and he had a lot of interesting things to say. And we're going to dig right on into it. But before we do anything, stop, like, and subscribe if you haven't already. Like the channel, do a little bit of commenting if you feel I'm in the area of what I'm hitting with you guys. And we're gonna get on right on into it. Our boy, Cameron Jarrell Newton, decided to go on the pivot today. And he got into it with Channing Crowder a little bit. And I'm paraphrasing, but the consensus came up where Cam was basically saying he still views himself as a top 32 player, which he was saying there aren't the bottom 32, those players in the last five are not better than him, which I'm guessing you're looking at guys like Baker Mayfield and Davis Mills and um, I guess the Sam Donalds of the world and different guys that didn't really have too much success last season. That's ranked in the lower half of the quarterback league. He went on to say that he feels like he's still better, and that's his opinion. He voiced his opinion. We all support Cam. We all love Cam. And now I'm going to give you my opinion. Cam is beloved in Carolina simply for he's done a whole lot of things that we have deemed great in the community. We've deemed that he's a great leader. He's a great football player. He led this team to the 2015 Super Bowl. We love Cam here in Carolina. And I'm gonna be honest and looking at you, he went on to quote himself and said that he struggled a lot last season when he was asked about his different situations. He digged into New England, and he basically said he got himself in an effed up situation. Basically, with that being said, after leaving Carolina with the injury, he was released and picked up by New England, which we all know this. And going to New England, Tom Brady had just left. They in full rebuild mode, reboot mode, um, and they basically building things from the ground up. And so they kind of used him as a bridge quarterback to get, aka he was their Teddy Bridgewater. Basically, they brought him in, and they said, "Okay, this guy can get us from A to B until we find the next guy, the future." And Bill Belichick and his coaching staff did exactly that. Cam went in, and to me, Cam was dealt an unfair hand in New England. I'm just being honest. Because you come in, you get him right before the training camp, and he really don't have time to really learn the playbook like he should. So he's basically trying to get down the terminology and different stuff that New England does differently from everybody else. And they bring him in, and instantly you look at this guy and you're like, okay, he's trying to learn things on the fly. You can see that he's trying to learn things on the fly, but with his athleticism and his skill set, he flourished. The first couple of games in New England, he did really well. And then I think by week 3 or 4, he ended up catching COVID. This is the season still with COVID because if you rewind to that preseason, nobody was practicing because they weren't even fans in the stands because COVID was so bad and people were, dying left to right from COVID. So with that being said, it's not an excuse. Everybody else had the same advantages he had. But once you catch COVID, he's in the middle of learning a playbook. He now has to accelerate his process of learning while sitting from home, not in the facility, 14-day quarantine, where he's not with the team and he's not able to get with anybody that's going to be able to help him. Because I believe Josh McDaniels was the OC back then. So you're already behind. He said it before, he's behind. He comes back off of COVID and he goes, and instead of he gets the vaccine, he didn't. So he was susceptible to catching COVID again, which really railroad. He was never the same after he caught COVID. It kind of changed his body, changed everything we saw about him. And he already, from my opinion, has bad mechanics to start with. So a guy out there that's fresh off of bad mechanics and he's not looking the same physically, it's not going to be good. But in doing so, he played 15 games for the New England Patriots. And I have his numbers. But before I get into his numbers, make sure you like and subscribe. If you like the content that's coming, like and subscribe. But he played 15 games. He had a 7-8 win-loss record. So he basically was a little bit of under 500. But that being said, you got to look at it's rebuilding mode. They know they weren't winning anything. They knew that they weren't competing with what they had on that team, and that roster was not up to par. Bill Belichick knew that. He managed to throw for 2,600 yards, 57, so 2,657 yards. He had a quarterback rating overall of 82.9 from a scale of 1 to 100. It's not bad. His touchdown to interception ratio was he had 8 to 10. So with that being said, Cam didn't get the best break in New England, but you can look at it and say, okay, this is excusable because of the situations and everything that he's put in, and him being a veteran trying to learn a playbook on the fly after being called in at the last minute to come was very extremely hard to do, which they gave him the off season to come on in, and you know the rest. Mac Jones was who they drafted because they saw something in Mac Jones coming out of Alabama. And with Mac Jones coming in, they decided to say, okay, if we can see signs and flashes in Mac Jones learning everything on the fly, then we'll roll with him. So you got a Cam Newton that's 1 year now into this playbook, and he seems to be more comfortable. And as you go through preseason, Cam Newton is doing his thing in preseason. He wasn't blowing off your heels, but he wasn't doing anything to lose the game or lose his position. But I think the biggest thing that killed him was he didn't want to get the COVID shot at the time, the vaccination. So with that being said, his personality and everything hanging over Mac Jones was a little hard for them to deal with. So they decided that they gift wrapped Mac Jones with the position because Cam Newton is a big aura in that locker room. I mean, let's be honest. It seemed like it was gift wrapped for him. Let's be honest. I don't think Mac Jones did anything to beat out Cam Newton, but I think they made their mind up. Okay, we owe Cam Newton $8 to $10 million. We got a young guy that we basically got on a veteran on a rookie contract. Why not roll with him? Because he's showing us the same thing that Cam is showing us. He isn't showing us anything that's less. The team has improved around him. We went out and got Judon and all those guys in the offseason, spent a whole bunch of money, $230 million, I believe. But they spent a lot of money on improving that team. And it was basically built around Mac Jones, whether Cam knew it or not. So, with that being said, Cam is now on the shelf, and hence we're under the Sam Darnold regime with Sam Darnold. So, I believe it was 7 to 8 games have gone by. Week 10, we're already basically competing for nothing at this point in time. Carolina Panthers has gone. We started off hot, 3-0. Then we had injuries to a lot of different players, from J.C. Horn to different cats. And Sam Darnold turned back into the New York Jets Sam Darnold. And P.J. Walker was basically starting at the point in time when Cam Newton was called by week 10. With that being said, you bring in Cam Newton. This is where he said he came, and this is on the podcast. If you haven't had a chance to go watch the pivot, he said he comes into another effed up situation, thinking that he is such a great player that he can still enhance the situation and take the challenge. But he realizes that in order to do that, you got to have everybody else to fulfill their role. And with that being said, the offense got to show up. The defense got to show up. The coaching got to show up. He didn't have any of that in Carolina, and I'm a fan, and I can be honest about that. You come to a situation where basically week to week, our defense was keeping us in games. Our offense was horrendous. Christian McCaffrey is hurt. DJ Moore is the only consistent thing on that side of the football, and the offensive line is in shambles. That was the problem coming into Carolina. A bad offensive line, a shaky head coach, a horrible offensive coordinator who's running elementary school plays, and um, Joe Brady. Sorry, I couldn't get his name out. Joe Brady ends up getting fired the following week that Cam Newton comes in. So Cam Newton comes in week 10, Joe Brady gets fired. So a lot of this aligns to the point where you're looking at, you got the guy who's teaching Cam Newton the offense, and he's fired the week after Cam Newton comes in. So what does that do? That stunts your growth and your development. I'm just stating facts. I'm not making excuses for Cam Newton. I'm stating facts. I don't know why it seems like anytime you tell the truth about Cam Newton, people think it is, they look at it as excuses because they think of this guy as some freaking superhero, super mutant, superhuman guy that he's not. He's a regular human like everybody else. And he's been getting bad hands. So you come to a team with no offensive line, and basically your weapons are not getting open, and your best running back is sitting on the shelf in regular clothes, you're gonna lose. And your head coach is a joke from week to week. This is the same head coach that didn't have a kicker. Matt Rhule. I'm just saying. I'm stating facts. It is what it is. You can like it, hate it, or love it. But he come in, and we all know the story. They run with the narrative because the media is so against Cam Newton that he hasn't won at 5 starts, and it dates back to with him playing in New England the previous year. But you got to remember he didn't play in the preseason, and he came in and played an Arizona game, and at the time Arizona was 8-1, and he single-handedly took over the game because everybody was motivated. A motivated team makes a difference. But then quickly we came back down to earth the following week. Like I say, there's a bunch of moving parts. If you send a quarterback out on the field and he don't know the playbook and he don't know what he's doing from left to right, and he got to guess what he's doing at the line of scrimmage, you're going to lose. It's just common knowledge. And that's the game that essentially Joe Brady ended up getting fired when they went to the Dolphins. That was his first official start, and he didn't look well. But he bounced back at Washington. But with that being said, I look at some of his numbers, and the question is, can he still be a top 32 quarterback? Well, I look at his numbers from 2015 when he was at his peak, his pinnacle, his best years. In 16 games, he had 3,837 yards. As a passer, 3,837 yards. This is the year that he went to the Super Bowl. He had 35 passing touchdowns, 11 interceptions with a quarterback rating of 99.4. It's not bad. Won him an MVP. But you go back to the last full year that he played, and that's the COVID year in New England. And he did about 1,000 yards less throwing with 2,657. And his quarterback rating overall was 82.9. So it's not a big drop off. He really went down minimally. But that being said, he didn't have as many touchdowns because, let's be honest, he didn't have any weapons in New England. He had no receivers, no tight ends. All he had was an offensive line that could block for him. So he was handicapped. He was strapped. He only threw 8 touchdowns, and he had 10 interceptions. I mean, his days of trying to make people better is far over. But if you give this guy a team in which it's everything serviceable, if you give him a good offensive line and you give him a number one, a true number one receiver, I believe that Cam Newton can still make some noise in the NFL. And I'm saying this to say, in my opinion, looking at his numbers, I haven't given you anything but facts. Looking at his numbers from his last full season in 2020, Cam Newton could still ball. A motivated Cam is a scary thing. But I'm under the impression that will he get his opportunity to show that he can still do it again? I don't see that happening because the media is so far against him, and every little thing that he do, they all own him. So I pray that Cam can take this time, this moment, because he's right. He is better than most of the quarterbacks that's out there right now. I would take him over Davis Mills because Davis Mills has not taken a team to a Super Bowl. Davis Mills has not won an MVP. Davis Mills has not been a Pro Bowler. Anybody watching this think any otherwise, you're fooling yourself. Any of those guys like um Donald, we already know he better than Donald. Baker Mayfield, we know he better than Baker Mayfield. Jimmy Garoppolo, I'd say the difference between Jimmy Garoppolo and Cam Newton has won an MVP. And even though Jimmy's taking his team to the Super Bowl, there's a slight edge for Cam Newton because physically he's better. Um, I think he's a better, and this isn't saying much, but he's a better passer than Jimmy Garoppolo. He's a better athlete than Jimmy Garoppolo. And like I said, there are, I just gave you three off the top of my head. I would put, is he better than a guy like Kirk Cousins? No. I think right now Kirk Cousins is above average starter, but he's always been in his entire career. I mean, you look at some of the teams that's around, you got Mahomes, you got Herbert, you got Joe Burrow, you got a lot of different cats that Cam, like I said, he's nowhere next to top 25, but I would say around that 27-ish, 28-ish area. Um, I could see him somewhere fitting in around there because it's like he's above average in a great situation. You gotta put him in a great situation to flourish. And I think he hasn't had the opportunity to be on a ready-made team because I mean, look at Tom Brady, Drew Bledsoe. That was already a ready-made team, and Tom Brady made the most of it, and he elevated his play. Tom Cam Newton is not going to have that opportunity like him because a lot of teams are threatened by his aura to bring him in. I mean, it just is what it is. But if you agree with me, down in the comments, give me something to work with right here because I want to know how far off am I. I believe I try to be as realistic as I can with Cam Newton, being that he was my quarterback for over almost a decade. I love the guy, but I mean, I don't want to be biased in any way because I do believe genuinely he is still a top 32 quarterback. I just don't see it happening because there aren't many opportunities to get in the NFL because you're not going to push out a Trevor Lawrence in the Jaguars for him. You could possibly say Daniel Jones, he could, beat out a Daniel Jones or somebody like that in New York. Because if you ask me, he better than Daniel Jones. And the Steelers, who the Steelers got at quarterback? He better than anybody in the Steelers right now. Kenny Pickett and all. I mean, let's be honest. There are some teams where he fit right in there. But will they give him the opportunity? I don't think so. But this has been your boy Will, and I'm here giving you another video because I believe in Cam. Do you?